Alex, I spent 40 minutes this morning just staring at a bucket of joint compound waiting for it to tell me its secrets. It didn't say a word, but my lower back sure had a lot to say about the 3 sheets of 5/8 I moved yesterday.
Only 40 minutes? I thought your pre-game ritual involved at least an hour of contemplative silence and 3 cups of coffee before you even touch a putty knife.
It's a delicate negotiation. Drywall isn't just construction. It's a test of your soul hidden behind a layer of gypsum and paper. It's the only trade where you spend 3 days making a mess just so you can spend the fourth day trying to pretend you were never there.
The invisible art form. But let's be real. Most of our listeners think drywall is just the boring stuff that gets in the way of the fun wood or metal projects. Why are we doing a deep dive into the white dust nightmare today?
Because if the bones of your room look like a topographical map of the Ozarks, that beautiful walnut dresser I'm building is going to look like junk sitting next to it. You can't hide bad wall prep. And people are terrified of it. They see a pro like Jeff Thorman whipping a 12-inch knife around and think, I could never do that. But it's just a series of deliberate moves, like a dance, but with more sneezing.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning then. If I'm standing in the lumber aisle looking at a stack of gray boards, what am I actually buying? Is it all the same stuff?
Most folks are going to grab the 1/2 inch. That's your bread and butter. But if you're doing a ceiling or you want to actually drown out the sound of your teenager's garage band, you want the 5/8. It's heavy as a wet mattress, but it doesn't sag. Then you've got your green board for bathrooms. It's treated so it won't turn into a mushroom farm the first time someone takes a long shower.
I've seen people trying to wrestle those 8-foot sheets into a sedan. It never ends well.
It's a tragic comedy. Look, drywall thrives on being flat. You store it on its edge, it bows. You leave it in the rain, it's a giant sponge. You've got to treat it like a sleeping giant. Keep it flat, keep it dry, and for heaven's sake, get a friend to help you carry it.
Speaking of carrying, once we get it home, how do we actually get it on the wall? I've seen you use adhesive, but I've also seen people just go to town with a screw gun.
Here's the secret sauce that the fast and cheap crews skip. Liquid nails, or any good construction adhesive. Run a bead down the center of those studs. It stops the nail pop ghost from haunting you 6 months later when the house settles. Then you tack it with screws.
I've watched you do this. You don't just drive the screw. There's a specific depth, right? If you break the paper, you're in trouble.
Exactly, you want it to sit in a little dimple, just enough for the mud to hide the head, but if you hear that crunch and the screw head disappears into the gypsum, you've basically just poked a hole in a cracker. It has no holding power. You have to back it out and drive another one 2 inches away. It's a game of finesse.
What about the layout? I've seen people stand them up vertically, but most pros seem to lay them sideways.
Horizontal is the way, Alex. Always. If you hang them long ways, you've got a seam that goes from the floor to the ceiling. If that stud isn't perfectly straight, and let's be honest, modern lumber is about as straight as a wet noodle, you'll see that hump forever. You bridge the studs horizontally, and you end up with fewer seams at eye level. It's about managing the finish work misery you're going to face later.
Okay, the boards are up. The room looks like a giant, dusty jigsaw puzzle. Now we get to the part everyone hates. Taping. Why do some people use that sticky mesh tape while you're out here struggling with a roll of paper?
Because paper is stronger. There, I said it. Mesh is great for small repairs, it's sticky, it's easy. But for a new wall, paper tape is the gold standard. It's got a crease down the middle for corners, and once it's embedded in the mud, it becomes part of the wall. Mesh can stretch and crack over time. If you use mesh, you better be using hot mud, that chemically setting stuff, or you're just asking for a hairline crack to show up on your birthday.
Hot mud. That sounds like something I'd order at a coffee shop that hates me.
It's basically plaster of Paris on steroids. It sets in 20, 45, or 90 minutes. It doesn't shrink, but boy, if you leave it on your knife too long, you'll be chipping it off with a jackhammer. For beginners, go with the all-purpose blue bucket or the lightweight green bucket. It gives you time to think. It gives you time to, make mistakes and fix them.
I've seen people put on a layer of mud so thick they could use it as a structural support. What's the goal for that first embed coat?
The biggest mistake people make is trying to make the wall perfect on day one. The first coat is just a delivery system. You're putting the mud on, pushing the tape into it, and then, this is the part people miss, you're squeezing the excess out. If you leave a big hump under the tape, you're going to be sanding until the next leap year.
So thin as in?
Thin and flat. You're looking for a mechanical bond, and for the love of all that is holy, don't mess with it once it starts to get tacky. Drywall mud is like a nervous cat. If you keep poking it while it's trying to settle, it's going to get ugly.
What about corners? Inside corners look like a literal nightmare. I've seen people trying to do both sides at once and ending up with a shredded mess.
Ah, the corner gouge. We've all been there. The trick is to do one side and let it dry completely. Then come back and do the other side. If you try to do both at once, the corner of your knife is going to keep digging into the wet mud on the opposite side. It's like trying to paint a moving car. Total exercise in futility.
We have to talk about the elephant in the room, the dust, the white powder that gets into your shoes, your hair, and your very DNA. Is there a way to do this without looking like a powdered donut?
Honestly, not really. You can get vacuum attachments for your sanders, and they help. But drywall finishing is a messy business. The real pro tip is wet sanding with a giant sponge for the final touch, but that takes a level of control most DIYers haven't mastered yet. My advice? Wear a respirator. Not a cheap paper mask, a real one. And seal the vents in your house unless you want your furnace to cough for 3 weeks.
I've noticed you use different sized knives as the coats go on. Why are we going from a 6-inch to a 12-inch? Can't I just use one big one for everything?
Think of it like a ramp. If you have a seam, it's a bump. If you try to hide that bump over 6 inches, it's a steep hill. You'll see it. If you feather it out over 12 or 14 inches, your eyes can't detect the change in elevation. You're essentially tricking the light. That's what skimming is all about, blending the peaks into the valleys until everything is a flat prairie.
It sounds like a lot of waiting. Apply, wait a day. Sand, apply, wait a day.
It is. It's a test of patience. Most people fail because they try to rush the second coat while the first one is still damp in the middle. If it's still cold to the touch, it's not dry. If you mud over wet mud, you're just trapping moisture, and that's how you get bubbles in your tape. It's like a fine wine, Alex. It needs its time, only it tastes significantly worse.
I'll take your word for it. Let's talk about the finishing touch. Most people think once the sanding is done, you just slap on some paint and you're golden. But I heard you complaining about flashing the other day.
Oh, flashing. That's when you paint your wall and you can see exactly where every seam and screw hole was because the drywall paper and the joint compound absorb paint differently. The paper's thirsty, the mud is like a sponge.
So how do we stop the phantom seams from appearing?
Primer, not just paint plus primer. You need a dedicated, high-quality drywall primer. It seals the surface so the top coat of paint sits evenly across the whole wall. It's the final insurance policy on all that hard work you did with the knife.
You know, for a project that involves so much dust and waiting, it's actually kind of satisfying when it's done. There's something about a perfectly flat white wall that feels like a fresh start.
It really is. It's the ultimate invisible win. When I walk into a room I've finished, I don't see the walls. And that's the highest compliment you can give a drywaller. It means I did my job so well that the environment just exists quietly.
So, what's the one thing you want a first-timer to remember when they're standing there with a bucket of mud and a look of pure terror?
Don't fight the mud. It wants to go where the knife takes it. If you mess up a spot, let it dry, sand it back, and try again. It's just gypsum and water. It's the most forgiving material in the world because you can always add more and you can always take it away. You aren't cutting a piece of expensive mahogany where one wrong move ruins the board. You're sculpting. Just keep your knives clean, your patience up, and your respirator on.
And maybe buy a shop vac with a really long hose?
2 shop vacs and a very understanding spouse.
That's the real pro tip right there. Thanks for walking us through the white dust wasteland, Tiger. I think I'm actually brave enough to go fix that hole in the hallway now.
Just remember, thin coats, Alex. Thin coats or you'll be sanding until the kids graduate.
Until next time on the Tiger Den, keep making things, and maybe try to keep the dust in the shop.
Fat chance of that, but we can dream. Take care, folks.